Welcome to the Bold Analysis. There is some interesting development on Hustler Fund I want us to look at. And I listened to some video that is produced by a gentleman in TikTok known as the Watchman _KE. And he seems to have summarized Hustler Fund, picking up from something that David Ndii said in the latest interview in Citizen TV. I wanted to listen to that 4-minute interview here, that 4-minute clip here, because it is what will give us the gist of this analysis.
Mr. President, Mr. David Ndii, who is the chair of your Council of Economic Advisors, just recently revealed the following.
The Hustler Fund is run by the private sector. We have no access to it. No public official has access to the Hustler Fund. It's fully automated. It is run by a private sector. It's run by the engine provided by the telcos. The money sits with a custodian in a bank.
Mr. President, the Hustler Fund that your regime has rolled out is very different. That my conclusion is that these are two different products. Let me explain. The Hustler Fund that you promised Kenyans was supposed to be a wealth creation tool for small businesses. You said that it was the solution to the perennial problem that the small businesses face in Kenya, lack of adequate credit facilities. You touted it as an alternative to the existing credit products currently in the market that are either inaccessible or predatory to the average hustler. You said that hustlers were borrowing money with high interest rates of up to 10% per month, and that the Hustler Fund would be a government fund issued interest-free to Kenyans. This is you explaining what Hustler Fund was meant to be.
Serikali ya Kenya itatengeneza hazina maalum inayoitwa Hustler Fund. Na hiyo Hustler Fund tutaweka pesa ya serikali shilingi bilioni 50. Na hiyo bilioni 50 tutawapatia wafanyabiashara kama wewe bila interest, without interest, bila hiyo interest ambayo umesema.
Mr. President, if the claims by Mr. Ndii are correct, and that the Hustler Fund is a private fund that bypassed Parliament oversight and appropriation, then it is my conclusion that it is in fact operating like a Shylock facility. Shylocks are loan sharks who create ambiguous contracts with those who take their credit facilities. Shylock contracts are made deliberately ambiguous so that it becomes easy for the person taking a loan to misinterpret the terms and conditions for uptake and repayment, meaning that inevitably you fail to meet your obligations as a borrower and your assets are seized. The Hustler Fund appears to be very similar to a Shylock facility, a faceless company with no known directors, no public oversight, unknown source of funds, dubious statistics among many other red flags. This is the mother of all Shylocks in Kenya. Remember that those who took it up were asked to input their M-Pesa pins, meaning that their M-Pesa accounts were among the collateral items given. In this era where M-Pesa accounts are linked to bank accounts, financial services and personal data, no one knows what else faceless private sector players who are behind the Hustler Fund are willing to do to recover their money. Besides, I vividly remember the CS for Cooperatives and Micro and Small Enterprises, Simon Chelugui, providing statistics on Hustler Fund. Where was he getting these statistics from if no public official has access to the fund? Why did the government assume the role of communicating the progress of the fund on behalf of the private company that is the owner of the Hustler Fund scheme? Mr. President, is the Hustler Fund a long con? Last but not least, I watched in shock as David Ndii compared Kenya to Ghana and Sri Lanka. With the current state of economy and the fact that you have resorted to prayers and supernatural intervention for our economic problems, how do we know that we are not going to be worse than Ghana and Sri Lanka? The structural adjustment programs are not working as fast as you hoped. You have scrapped all subsidies but still have to borrow money to keep your operations afloat. Mr. President, where are we headed as a country?
Ladies and gentlemen, what do you make of that guy's statement? He seems to be saying some very hard-hitting truths on what is going on in the country. I want to humbly request you to subscribe to our channel, click the notification bell, and also like our video. And I want to say thank you very much for those who support us from different parts of this world. Asanteni sana. There is something I need to clarify, and maybe it was not made clearly. I know that the product, or that Hustler Fund product, it was supposed to or rather, the idea came as a solution to the small scale traders to stop being harassed according to maybe exorbitant Shylocks. And for me, I was wondering honestly, if you did a research and you're told about the Shylock and you were told it's in specific maybe market centers where these people are taking that money for business, but then you rolled out a national program, which even a person in the northeastern who was not even doing business with the Shylock, even the terror gang calling themselves bandits in the middle of West Pokot can access and get the loan, you wonder whether it was really targeting. It really targeted the population, or rather the group that it was meant for. Secondly, on the issue of it being a loan or a grant, okay, a loan, it was a loan, but it was supposed to be zero rated. I think that's it. That ukichuka 500, you return the 500. Note that there is an interest rate in terms of delay, but the interest rate was reduced. I think by the time the promise was made, they had not done bit of market research just to understand how such a product would have a competitive advantage to the rest, instead of just making it a political pledge. But then there is also a cost of disseminating the money. Even if you have a product, especially financial products, a cost will go into the administrative roles. You need to employ secretary, nani, watu wa kupiga simu, call center. It's really a highly coordinated thing. Now, I just want to ask some very few questions here, and I've always been insisting that the Hustler Fund is very close to my heart, because I can tell you, if anything else will fail, but you will have to remain with the Hustler Fund. Yes, because that is the only project that, according to me, speaks to the heart of the hustlers. Mtu anaweza pata metana yake hata kama amekataa kulipa, lakini amepata. That's it. So I didn't follow the interview by then, but I've tried to listen back to that interview at Citizen by David Lee, and he's saying the fund is managed by some private. Now, why is it that the management aspect is shrouded in some sort of secrecy? Because I remember at one point the interview President was saying, when he was asked why they didn't follow the law, making sure that everything is at stake now, that's a government thing, then they said the fund was supposed to remove bureaucracy. So that's why they limited a lot of processes, and they even make sure that they roll out the product before even creating the board fund. There is supposed to be a board fund and a manager or a CEO of that board fund. Before they even went to create that structure, the management structure, they just rolled it because effectiveness of it, since it could be achieved through the fund. But with what is coming, it's for the first time that, for me, maybe other people have heard, that it is being managed by a private firm. Who collects the profit? Because if it's a private firm, fine, there is no problem with that. But what is the contract between the government and them? Because this is public money at stake. That's it. We had a supplementary budget which there is a constitution that allows you to spend money, then take a supplementary budget in parliament after 2 months or so, within 2 months. But then what is the contract? Is it a PPP? Is it public-private partnership? PPP model? And who collects the profit? Or does it even envision a situation where it makes profit? That's a question that you're going to look at. Now, we know that the ministry gives us data. And the data on progress is being released in social media, especially by the Ministry of Cooperatives and Societies. And we are announcing milestones. And the milestone is on how many people have borrowed and how many people have repaid. And of course, this company behind is not visible. It's a very faceless company. The one that David is talking about is very faceless. But then they're not helping in communication. And in fact, there is low awareness level on this product. We have affordable housing going on. It's all over. Kifungua TV, you will hear President launching that, and it's the awareness level in affordable housing is strong, is high. We have the subsidized fertilizer that we are asking the farmers to take for the short rains coming. We are really shouting and using a lot of media space to talk about it. I think those are two that are rolled. What else? I think those are two that I can remember. We also have the issue of identification going on, and I think there is some data, a lot of data being collected. But then on Hustler Fund, which is a strong pillar of UDA manifesto, totally silent about it. You're not seeing any advert. You're not seeing any PSC. In fact, if it would have been a success, and I'm not saying it's a failure so far, ungeona mtu wanaaji watu wachukue, kwa sababu maybe watu wanachukua na walipi or something. Then, what is the credibility of the data that you're receiving? Maybe I've always said, hey, maybe sasa hapo sasa mimi ndio nimekwamia. Kwamba how do we know the data is clean? Or is the true representation of what's going on? Because the data is what gives us, the data is packaged to give us perception of a success. But will we be negative thinkers if we also argue that the data may not be clear? It can still be doctored for the perceived, or rather for the perception that is needed. Those are questions that are all running. Something is here. Why did you put it under private firm while we have a whole ministry in it and telcos are behind it? So what is that other firm? Was it an infrastructure that government could not afford? Because this is a product we're not saying we are hiring, or rather we are getting into a 1-year contract. It should be something that will go as much as William Ruto is in power, rather so long as William Ruto sticks to his UDA manifesto. So why did we have a full ministry, not a state department, we have a full ministry that is managing this, and we still managed to go to someone else to help us implement it? Is it rushed? There is a lot of questions, and for me, the fact that some things are shrouded in some sort of secrecy is a bit revealing.